Hello there everyone, Raj here. I hope all of you are doing well. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you my view on the latest fragrance from Creed. This is actually part of a duo that was released into their Amber universe. This one I'll be talking about today is Centaurus. There is another one called Delphinus, which I tried. But I was very kindly given a sample, these kind of fairly smallish samples from a Creed sales assistant in not their official boutique, but a department store here in London. These are quite nice actually, these carded samples. You don't get a huge amount, but I think enough to kind of give my initial impressions. It's maybe not a full review, but my initial impressions on this fragrance. They also threw in this magazine, which I'll show you some images from this. It's kind of just like a marketing sort of marketing thing that they've put together. And yeah, I'll give you my thoughts on this fragrance. I haven't owned a fragrance from Creed in a long time. I haven't spoken about Creed in a long time. I think they still have an appeal for me, but that has waned over the last few years. I used to own Green Irish Tweed. I had Bois de Portugal, Royal Water, which I liked a lot. Aventus, obviously, it's like compulsory to own Aventus if you're a fragrance enthusiast. Vetiver Geranium, which was a very nice one. I don't know if that line is still around. I had Original Santal, maybe one or two I might be missing. A large decant of Jardin d'Amalfi. So I do think there is quality in Creed. There's all kinds of discussions you can have on the history of the brand, the blending, the prices. I will go into that, but for now, Creed still has an appeal. Maybe not what it used to be. I have spoken about many other Creed fragrances on my channel, so this video will be part of a playlist, a Creed playlist. I'll leave the link down below. And all right, let's get into the review. Okay, so as I said, they gave me this book, this kind of marketing book, which has all kinds of, I think, quite nice images on some of Creed's bottles and all of their various things that they do. There's a giant horse here. And all the various fragrances. And you've got some images here from some of their sort of where they get their ingredients from, or supposedly get their ingredients from. Here goes a kind of a tribute here to tuberose and some images of, how it's all sourced, and it's like all of this is kind of to be taken with a pinch of salt, with a pinch of ambergris, and I will go through that later in some detail. But I thought it was quite a nice little thing that they gave me. Okay, so let's get into some of the more the details, the more technical details of this fragrance. The first thing that I will mention is the price, and I will be talking about price. It's important to do that, I think, in any fragrance review. This fragrance sells for a lot of money. 50 ml sells for £235, and the 100 ml is £330. That's even more expensive than the other kind of, let's call them the standard range of fragrances from Creed. So I don't know if this is like a new direction, if they're just testing out the market, whether they think that this fragrance is a more elevated or more expensive, more luxurious version. I will give you my views on that. But yeah, in the top notes, cardamom, cinnamon, tobacco, and pink pepper. This is, very much a spicy tobacco, woods, resinous kind of fragrance, which is a style actually that I quite like. Geranium in the mid notes, sandalwood, heliotrope, and jasmine, so some florals there, patchouli. And then going into the base notes, there's benzoin, tolu balsam, tonka bean, so some resins and some sweeter kind of notes there. The dreaded ambroxan note. And then you have got bourbon vanilla from Madagascar. So, is this worth £330? Well, I will let you know very, very soon. But let's start with what I like about this fragrance, because there are things that I like about this fragrance. First of all, actually, the longevity and the performance, it lasts a very long time on my skin. This is a full day's wearing, even going into the next day. So performance is strong, feels like a cooler weather fragrance, certainly projects off the skin quite well in the opening couple of hours, and just settles quite nicely, I think, on my skin throughout the day. It never becomes too much or too little. It's just there, it's present, and it just emanates softly after the first few hours, and you get that all the way through the fragrance. So I'm actually quite pleased with the performance of this one. The opening few hours is really where this fragrance is at its best, and I think it does kind of disintegrate and fall to pieces a little bit on my skin and doesn't hold up very, very well, which is a real shame at this high price tag. The opening is resinous and sweet and kind of balmy. It feels humid almost. It has a vividness in the opening notes, which I actually quite like. You know, you do pick up on a lot of the spicier elements. I do get a kind of a golden kind of liquidy, ambery, woods, creamy, soft. Not too over the top in terms of that cinnamon note, which sometimes can be quite strong in fragrances if it's done a little bit too much or overdosed. So very balanced actually, and it starts off really, really well. It promises a lot, and this blueprint that they have created here has so much potential. But then as you start to transition away from that quite nice opening, it turns into something that has a kind of cheap feel. It turns into what I would describe as a Christmas candle that you might find in, I don't know, like here in the UK we have Marks and Spencer's, or well, it is international, but a store like that, you know, a cheap candle that you might find and you think, oh, that will be nice as a stocking filler or as a little gift or just something to have on the table and burn after your Christmas dinner kind of thing, or autumnal kind of Christmas spiced amber spice candle, that kind of feel, which I do not want at this price point at all. It loses some of the more luxuriousness that you do get in that opening blast, and it's a real shame that that doesn't hang around. I get dry, earthy leaves here mixed in with this vanilla note that feels, as I said in the beginning, sweet and kind of it feels not overly saccharine, but it's done in a kind of inviting, slightly boozy way. But then it turns into a kind of sweet ice cream feel, a cheap candle, a cheap smelling fragrance, and kind of gets a little bit annoying towards the end of the fragrance, to the point where even though the longevity is great, I just think I wish this scent would kind of go away. Like it's kind of a little bit irritating. There's so much potential in this fragrance, and I think if they wanted to use maybe slightly better ingredients, I know Creed talk about in the whole ingredients thing, but I don't see it, I don't feel it, I don't perceive it, and that's the most important thing. If they wanted to put out a fragrance with maybe, I think maybe if they just didn't want to make as much money, maybe like less margin. I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but there is a potential here for this fragrance to be really great. It just never goes to that level. It's quite basic. It's quite stripped back. I've had this fragrance on for a little bit of time now, and all of that initial opening blast, that kind of spiced up clove kind of feel. You have almost a bit of black pepper. It feels spicy in that way, but smooth spices just goes away and just turns into this generic sweet blend, which is akin in some ways to fragrances by Parfum de Marly. Now this one is Herod. I think Herod is better than this fragrance. I think Carlisle is better than Centaurus, but it's in that level of quality of ingredients and blending and kind of mass appeal kind of fragrance. Although the Parfum de Marlys, while I don't think the house as a whole is that great, the two that I mentioned are probably my favorites, and those I think are better. Another couple of fragrances that came to mind: Chanel Egoiste. This has some similar notes. It's not the same fragrance, but done to a much higher level. It's a much better fragrance. Another one which kind of in some ways reminded me, but not too much, just elements of this fragrance. This is Guerlain's Héritage. This is the Eau de Parfum version. Just, you know, not a sweet, but a much better version of Centaurus, an alternative. But it's an example of you don't have to spend outrageous amounts of money on a fragrance to smell good. And, you know, this does smell good for the most part, and I can see the appeal of this one. I wore this, you know, to work a few times. I wore it out and about casually. While I didn't get any comments, I can, you know, because I wore it a limited number of times, I could see people really liking this and having getting compliments. But is that enough to warrant £330? I don't see the value. Price for me is something that I don't mind paying high prices, but you have to give value for money, right? No matter what, if you're spending £1,000 on whatever fragrance, if you think that you're getting something unique and luxurious and well blended and something that lasts on your skin is unique, then I think a lot of us fragrance enthusiasts will spend that money. I think Creed is kind of is for me a kind of a faux niche or faux luxury. It very much has a kind of it feels like Creed has this facade. And maybe it has always, I don't know, but as the prices go up, you know, the bottle sizes have gone down. I don't see Creed having that appeal as much as it used to in the past, but who knows? I don't know what direction they're going to go in. This is a different approach compared to their other releases. It's not as, it's fresh, but it still has a lightness to it, so it's not overly heavy. I think they've attempted something like this in the form of Royal Oud and potentially Royal Mayfair, but probably more Royal Oud in a more spicier, woody style, which is a departure from the fresh, verdant, crisp, aromatic, light florals which they normally do. And I'm not against that, but I just don't think it's been executed that well. My rating for Creed Centaurus is 6 out of 10. Guys, I would love to hear your thoughts on this fragrance. Does Creed still have an appeal for you, or are you completely done with them? What do you think about this one? What about Delphinus? And maybe just let me know if you still like Creed. What is your favorite Creed? Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.